I've had tons of more freedom than I ever had in my life. And that actually takes a lot of discipline to create artificial structure, is really useful. And that can be something as simple as I always go for a walk at 9 in the morning. It doesn't matter what it is, but it can also be like I have a reoccurring meeting, and I do have this. I have a reoccurring accountability meeting at noon on Mondays, and I'm always there because I lead the meeting and I don't have a choice. That's really important to create that structure, because if I don't do those things, then I
Well, Jeff, welcome. I appreciate you joining us. I want to get you on. You kind of wrote the book on No Bad Days, and kind of want to talk to you about the mindset that it takes to go into that, and just how you had to change your mindset to fit your surroundings and stuff. Do you mind kicking us off? Tell us a little bit about your story and the book you wrote.
Yeah, sure. It's obviously a bigger topic than we can cover in a single show, but the super short version is I believe that we get to choose how we perceive the day. The way I would look at it is, somewhere in the world right now, someone's having the best day of their life. Somewhere else in the world right now, there's someone having the worst day of their life. So therefore, this day that we're living in this moment is neither good nor bad. It's just how those individuals are thinking about it that controls how they're receiving it. So it's almost like how you perceive the day is how you receive the day. And once you recognize that, and then you apply what I call radical responsibility. This is a concept I kind of borrowed from various people, but it really hit home when I heard Hal Elrod. Do you guys know Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning guy?
Yes.
So Hal has a quote where he says, the moment you accept 100% responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change anything in your life. So, I got leukemia a while ago. That was objectively not awesome, right? But it wasn't my fault that I got leukemia, but it was my responsibility. I had to accept responsibility for the situation I found myself in and make the decisions that pointed me in the best possible direction. So that concept applied to this idea that we get to decide how we perceive things that are happening to us. Bad stuff's going to happen to you. Probably good and bad stuff will happen to you every day for the rest of your life. And when good stuff happens to you, you need to stop and be like, oh, that was great. Embrace the day. And there's neuroscience behind that. There's a guy, his name is, I think it's Richard Hanson. He's a PhD. He wrote a book called Hardwired Happiness, or Hardwiring Happiness. And he proved categorically through neuroscience that if you use the same neural pathways enough, it becomes easier to use them. This is the same concept that like Tony Robbins calls the reticular activating system, but it's basically like your mind defaults to the familiar. So if you stop when you walk outside and feel the sun on your face and think, wow, it's a beautiful day, it becomes a beautiful day for you. And if you do that enough, it becomes subconscious. It just happens. So for me, giving up bad days was literally as simple as saying today's a good day over and over and over again. Right. And then the second part of that is when the bad stuff happens to you, which it will, you're going to hopefully not get diagnosed with leukemia. I don't recommend that, but you're going to have stuff happen to you like that in your life. People are going to die. You're going to get hurt. You're going to have sickness. You're going to have financial setbacks. You have to stop and say, what can I do about this? And I borrow this from the Dalai Lama. So the Dalai Lama talks about the concept of worrying, and he says it never makes sense to worry because either you can do something about it or you can't. And if you can do something, you should just go do that. And if you can't, it doesn't help to worry. So I kind of apply that to the junk that happens, the bad things. I say, is there something I can do about it? And if so, I need to go do that. Right. So I get diagnosed with leukemia. I want to go find the best doctors in the world. I can do that, but I can't wave a magic wand and make it go away. So to the extent that I have no control, once I've done the things I can do, I have to just accept it. And then I take it one step further and I say, if you're going to be going through pain, you might as well grow through the pain. So then I start looking for the lessons from it. And I just apply that systematically to everything in my life.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that hasn't always been your mindset. What had to change? Was it just repeating over and over and visualizing every day as a good day? Or was it?
Yeah, I mean, of course it was. I didn't wake up at, I didn't wake up at 3 years old and the first words out of my mouth were no bad days. I wish I was that cool, but I didn't, but I did start relatively early. So I actually gave up bad days when I was 17. I'm going to turn 48 next week. So that's more than 30 years without a single bad day. So I know this stuff works, right? I know it for sure. I've had a lot of hard days. I've had a lot of crappy things happen to me that I didn't love, but I haven't let a single one of those ruin my day. So I know that you can make this choice. What happened to me though was I was 17. My parents were going through a divorce. I broke up with a girlfriend. I was feeling sad, anxious, all this teenage angst. It's so foreign to me now, 30 years later, that it's hard for me to even process. But I walked into a bathroom, right, with a knife, and I held it against my wrist at 17. And I looked in the mirror and I felt the blade on my wrist, and I thought, this is kind of dumb. Like, why do I want more pain? Like, because it was a serrated blade. I think if it had been an unserrated blade, it might have been a worse situation for me. But I felt this bite on my wrist, and I thought, I don't like pain. Why would I want to give myself more pain to get rid of pain? And I threw the knife away, and I said, I'm going to make sure today's a good day. Like, I'm young and relatively healthy and live in America. How bad can my life be? And I'm just going to tell myself out loud 10 times while looking in the mirror that today's a good day. I don't know where this came from. I have no explanation. Maybe it's inspired by God. I don't know. But I literally just said, today's a good day 10 times in a row. And I walked out of the bathroom, and every time for a month that I saw a mirror, if I was by myself, I would say, today's a good day out loud. And if I was not by myself, I would think it to myself 10 times in my head. And I did that hundreds of times a day, because you see mirrors all the time. It's insane how many mirrors there are, right? I became neurotic about it. I would just constantly be saying, today's a good day. And then one day I walked into a 7-Eleven. This is probably a month or two later. Guy behind the counter says to me, hey man, how you doing today? And I go, I never have bad days. And I literally went, holy crap, I never have bad days. I realized I hadn't had a bad day in like a couple of weeks, a month. And I was like, hey, this stuff works. So I just get into it. And this is like in the 90s. This is before YouTube. I didn't know about Tony Robbins and affirmations. I just fell into this. And, not everyone's lucky enough to accidentally fall into it. But the cool part is you don't have to accidentally fall into it. You can just start doing it. Like, if you guys want to give up bad days right now, all you have to do is say, today's a good day. That's literally the entire secret, which makes it a really boring book if you only write that one. I put a little bit of backstory in, but the book would be really short if it was like one sentence. So,
I honestly, that should be its own version of the updated version. Just all the pages say today's a good day.
Just today's a good day. Well, I actually thought about making a No Bad Days journal. It just said today's a good day on the top, and then people just wrote their things they were happy about in it, like a gratitude journal.
Oh yeah, that's an awesome idea. I think that'd be really
but
well.
then I thought, people can just write that in a notebook. So you guys can go steal that idea if you want. Promise. I can't
might have
copyright
to.
No Bad Days. It's too broad anyway. So.
Well, you said that you don't know where it came from, and maybe it was God. And throughout the whole first part of your story, it just kept jumping out of things that I'm trying to implement that I fail every single day at. But it's like the serenity prayer and waking up with gratitude, and we've talked a few times on the podcast about, like, it could be raining outside, and the baseball team is saying, it's a bad day today, but the farmer's been praying for this rain.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you talked about objectivity. Like, your diagnosis was objectively awful, but it's the mindset around it. And I think defining what a good day is as a choice more than looking as a reflection of, did only good things happen today. I think that is the first key to implementing this.
I mean, that is the basis, right? Because at the core, good and bad stuff will happen to you. And I say every day, but even if it's not every day, you will have bad stuff that happens to you. Like 100% certain of it. But, and actually, we could take it even a step further back and say that bad stuff doesn't actually happen, because we're actually assigning value to that. Stuff happens and we decide if it's good or bad. So, like, I got diagnosed with leukemia, which, as I said, objectively kind of sucked. But also was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. That's the day that I decided I didn't want to be a bankruptcy attorney anymore. That's the day that set me on a path to a life of ridiculous freedom. For people who don't know my story, I was a bankruptcy attorney in Michigan. when I was diagnosed with leukemia in 2008, I ended up being forced into personal bankruptcy. So I went from like in the middle of the Great Recession doing awesome because everyone needed to file bankruptcy and we had money coming in like crazy. I even had a television ad, right? Like I was like the Better Call Saul of West Michigan practically. Or at least on that trajectory, like I was going to be everywhere. Like we had filmed 3 different TV commercials and we'd already released one of them. And then all of a sudden I couldn't work. And I had all these advertising contracts and obligations in the office. And went from making, a pretty nice amount of profit to losing $5,000 or $6,000 a week overnight. I had another attorney that quit at that time. So I went from 2 attorneys to 0 in a 2-week period. He quit, gave me his 2-week notice, and I got diagnosed with leukemia a week later. Like, that's really comically bad timing, right? That's like not good at all. But in reality, that was a redirect that put me on the path of buying real estate. It put me on a path of going from literally bankrupt to retired in like 6 years. That, and in the middle of a time when everyone else was afraid to do anything, I was like, I need to figure out how to make money, and I want that money to come in even if I can't work and I die, because I need to protect my family. And the only thing I could think of was I need to buy stuff that pays stuff, right? So real estate is the thing that made sense to me. And so I started buying real estate in 2011 and using all of my spare time and energy and cash to do that. And I got to where by 2016, right, I was able to quit my corporate job and never go back to work. And I mean, literally bankrupt to retired in like 6 years. It's insane. And I would have never done it had I not got leukemia. So I could sit here and be like, wow, that leukemia diagnosis was terrible. But in reality, it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because now I just spent the first half or the first quarter of this year traveling. I've been to, as we're recording this, it's April, right, of 2026. And I have been to the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, Tanzania, Guatemala, Puerto Rico, like 5 times. And we're 5 months into the year, not even 5 months into the year. And I'm going next month to Ecuador. I would never have been able to do that if I was a bankruptcy attorney right now. And I would be way less happy. I'd be like, I wouldn't be having bad days because I gave up bad days way before that. But I would be like a marginally fulfilled, boring, no bad days guy in West Michigan.
So before we got started recording, I made the comment, you're probably one of the most free people I know. Like you just alluded to it with, you're constantly traveling. You spend a quarter of your time or 30% of your time in Puerto Rico. What switch from being a bankruptcy attorney, filing for bankruptcy, to becoming free? How did you financially free? How did you set up your life to be able to do that? And what kind of changed there?
Some of it was accident. When I went bankrupt, I took a job in Chattanooga. So I moved from Michigan down to Tennessee. And the job paid okay, but it had a potential for some really big profit sharing bonuses. And so I took those profit sharing bonuses to buy real estate, which was great. Stuff was really cheap then. So but I was working a full-time job, so I couldn't manage it day to day. So from the very beginning, I always had partners, and I always had third-party management, and I always had somebody else handling the day-to-day stuff. So then when I quit my job, I quickly realized, I don't really have anything to do. So I went down to my dad's condo in Florida right after I got a 6-month severance. And I told my now ex-wife, I said, hey, if I have the same amount of money in the bank 6 months from now as I do now, I'm not going back to work. That was literally the whole thing. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to make my severance stay the same for, that way I don't have to go back to work. And she was like, all right, whatever. And I went down to this condo and I sat down by the pool. And I was talking in this, Florida retirement folks home, and I'm 39 years old. And they're like, oh, it's so nice you're visiting your family. And I'm like, oh, my dad's at work. He's back in Tennessee right now working his job or whatever, And they're like, oh, so you're just like taking a vacation? I'm like, no, I retired. And they're like, and these are like, 80-year-old couples. And they're like, that doesn't make sense. You can't retire. I'm like, I don't have a job. I'm not looking for a job. I don't ever plan to look for a job. So I guess I retired. And it wasn't even really like a decision. It was more like, I don't want to go back to work. I hate working in corporate. I have an MBA and a law degree, so I could get that job, but I didn't want that job, right? And I haven't ever gone back since. So it's been wow, yeah, it's been 10 years since then. So 2026, it was March of 2026. So a decade without a job is pretty good. And then the thing is, I got bored in like a week. And so I started doing some other stuff like syndicating deals and helping people buy coaching and stuff. But I really quickly learned I don't like trading time for money. I took I don't know if you guys know MJ DeMarco, but he wrote this book called The Millionaire Fast Lane. I read that in the first couple of months after I quit working. And I wish I'd read it earlier. But the basic concept is the worst deal we make is trading 5 days of our life for 2 days off, or 50 weeks of our life for 2 weeks off. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So I kind of created a life where I get paid to do stuff I would do anyway. So, I help people make money. I like that. It's fun. I do things like I have this thing we call the Adventure Club, where we take people to really cool places around the world and just hang out with them. We just got back from the Serengeti, Tanzania, doing seeing the lions and elephants and all that stuff. We have a really sick trip coming up to Egypt next year. We're going to see a 6.5-minute total solar eclipse in Luxor at the temple of the sun god Ra. Take a group of like 25 people and go there. And then I make money doing this stuff. I get a free trip to Egypt and I make money doing it. And I get to hang out with really cool people because I don't like broadly advertise it. I mean, I might mention it on a podcast or whatever, but it's mostly like business people, real estate people, because the people that are going to hear about it aren't like getting a push ad on Facebook. I'm not advertising to like random people on Facebook. I might post it on my personal Facebook, but again, my personal following is going to be leaning towards people that are doing more interesting things. So it works out really well. We've been having a great time doing that. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but freedom to me is getting paid to do the things that you'd want to do anyway.
Wow, that's great. And I still am thinking about the diagnosis. It's been something that has come up in multiple books lately. And the most recent one I read was Getting to Neutral. And I think it was Russell Wilson's performance coach that wrote it or something like that. And he was very adamant about not using the C word. And he called it the C word all the time. And talked about how when you say the word, it gives it power, and I'm just not going to acknowledge it. And he wound up beating it, eventually passed from other health complications. But how much through your journey have you learned the power of the tongue and what you speak can give power to?
Yeah. So I heard a story a long time ago, and I later think it's been debunked, but I like it so much, I'll tell you anyway. So the word abracadabra?
Yeah.
Right. So a mentor of mine told me, and I don't think, like I said, I don't think this is accurate. So if you guys are listening to this, don't say Jeff said this was true. Just said it's instructive. So he told me that it came from ancient Aramaic words, abra and kadabra, okay, which literally means as I speak, it is, right? And I started thinking about that, and I did a whole presentation about this at one point. For a mastermind I used to run. I think the video is around on my YouTube channel somewhere. So if people really get creative, they might find it. But I started thinking about that concept of speaking things into existence, which, this is not something that original to me, obviously. Like you hear this in the self-help world all the time, The Secret and all this stuff. But I started thinking about it from like a biblical perspective, not to get like overly religious, but there's a passage in the Bible that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, right? It's in James, or First John, I mean. And so I thought about that a lot, and I went, there's really a lot of power to words. And so I started thinking about that, and I realized that the reason I don't have bad days is because I say I don't have bad days, right? So I came up with this whole concept that's sort of an offshoot of this concept, which is essentially saying that we can delude ourselves into truth. And I call it hashtagification. So, and I was going to say to you, you were saying earlier, like that you have trouble sometimes sticking with the things that you're doing. Like you get up in the morning and you want to do the serenity prayer or gratitude journaling or something, and you don't do it. I think most of the time it's because we make this stuff too complicated. Like it's really easy to have a rule that says, I never have bad days. It's hard to lean into that because you got to create a that mental fortitude. And some of it is like going to the gym, just doing it over and over again. You get better at it. But another part of it is making it really, really, really simple. James Clear in his book Atomic Habits talks about habit stacking. Like, if you're going to let your dog out anyway, you might as well like get your, sun exposure at that point. So go outside without your shirt on and absorb the sun, right? Like, if that's something you want to do, if your goal is to get more sun exposure, why not do it with something that you're already doing and stack it together? So I think part of it, like that mirror trick that I had, is I'm going to see mirrors. So I'm going to stack it as a trigger. I'm going to say, when I look in the mirror, I'm going to say today's a good day. But I like this idea of mental hashtagification, right? So this came from that same concept, no bad days, right? If I say no bad days, I wrote a whole book about it. It's clearly more than a sentence. Like, we could talk about it for the whole hour and a half we're on or whatever. But I also know that if I say no bad days when something's challenging happening to me, all of that mental framework just kind of populates, right? Like, it happens automatically. So with your gratitude stuff or the Serenity Player, it's great to do those things, but it's really important to have a personal self-identifying statement, because I think whatever that self-identifying statement that you have is controls who you are. Like, I can't have a bad day. If I wanted to, I couldn't have a bad day at this point, because my book's called No Bad Days and I have it tattooed on my arms in 2 different languages, like, and I'm like, I go like to the store and people walk up to me and say, hey, do you see they have this sticker over there that says No Bad Days? Like, I have, like, not that I'm like super famous, but people are buying me stuff and sending me stuff that say No Bad Days on it all the time. So like, if I like, and please don't send me any of that, just so y'all know, like, I don't need any more. It's like, I give this stuff away. I have No Bad Day coffee mugs and magnets and license plates, and it's cool, and I do appreciate it. But the point is, like, I've fully identified myself with that concept. And so I think that, like, how we identify ourselves matters almost more than the words we speak, because it's internal. There's a definition of integrity that I like, and I feel like I'm in lecture mode, so you guys feel free to interrupt anytime. But this definition of integrity that I like is that you're fully aligned in integrity when your words, your thoughts, and your actions are the same, right? So if you're thinking, oh man, today sucks, but you're saying today's a good day, probably not living in integrity, right? Or if you're acting as if the day is a bad day. And the thing is, the negative tends to overpower the positive. So you really need to focus on whatever one of those things is out of line and get it back in line. Because if you start acting as if the day is bad, you start thinking the day is bad, you start saying the day is bad. But it
What were
works.
the 3 things? Can you repeat the definition?
Yeah. So the definition of integrity to me is when your inner thoughts, your words, and your actions are aligned. And I think the good part about that is they tend to align to themselves. So if you say today's a good day enough, then you start thinking today's a good day. You start acting as if today's a good day, and then it becomes a good day. And it's the same thing with gratitude. It's the same thing with, hey, I'm a successful real estate investor. It's the fake it till you make it thing, right? It doesn't matter if it's true. If you believe it long enough and you act as if it's true long enough, it becomes true. So there's 2 concepts here. One, the word has real power, right? The word is God in the definition of the Bible, right? And God is the word. So and if you believe like I do, we're made in God's image. We get to speak things into existence just like he does. Not with as much power, obviously, but we get that because we're an extension of him. And then the second part is that we convince ourselves of something enough, then we act as if it's true. And if you act in a certain way, then that's what your results are going to be. If you do all the things that Elon Musk did his entire life, you become the richest man in the world. It just happens, right? Like, I mean, obviously you can't perfectly emulate anyone, but the point is still the same. If you do the things that, it's like Jim Rohn's quote, like, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. You go hang out with drunk smokers all day long, you become a drunk smoker. Because you're just going to do the things that are around. And it's the same with anything. If we act as a drunk smoker, we become a drunk smoker. But if we act like a real estate investor, we hang out with real estate investors all the time, then we become real estate investors. And I think that's true of every concept in life.
Yeah, I love what you said there, because I'm going back to biblical words, but in the beginning, God created. So you are creating your own reality by first you think it, then you say it, and then your actions become it. So I think that's really great. It kind of brings your whole thing full circle.
Yeah, and I do believe that. Like, if you ask me, I would say we're all very powerful creators of our own existence because we get to choose how we respond to the things that happen to us. We can't control everything that happens to us, but by choosing how we respond to things, we have a whole infinite array of opportunity that we wouldn't have otherwise. And there's another thing with opportunity. People always say opportunity knocks, but that's bullshit. Excuse my language. It's just not true. Opportunity doesn't knock. It's there. It's just waiting for you to like open the door, like grab a hold of the handle and open the door. There's opportunity everywhere. Right now, you make money in real estate. You can make money in stocks. You can make money in AI. You can make money selling coffee on the street corner. I don't care. There's so many opportunities, but it's not just about making money. Some of the best opportunities in our life are meeting the right person, having a fulfilling romantic relationship or partnership with someone that matters to you, raising children, traveling and experiencing other cultures. All of these opportunities are available to everyone, and we only get this one life, right? And I really believe this. I believe that we owe it to not only ourselves, but to our friends, our family, our community, and even really the entire world to live the best possible version of our life. Because whatever I was put here to do, if I don't do it, no one can do it for me. So if I don't do the things that I'm feeling called to do, I'm being selfish. I'm not giving the world what they deserve. So I have this recent calling I call the Billion Good Days Project, and I've been kind of slack and lazy on it. And the idea is to create a billion good days in my lifetime. So like if I'm not going to live a billion days more, I mean, I hope I do, but it's unlikely, right? Most people live about 80, 90,000 days in their lifetime. But if I can find a billion people and I can have each one of them have one good day that they wouldn't have had, I've created a billion good days. And the ripple effect of that is amazing. But it doesn't have to be a billion people. It can be a million people with 1,000 good days. If you guys both give up good days or bad days today, right? And then you live another 30,000 days each, I think I can claim, I co-created 60,000 good days. So do that. I need your days.
I think you need an app to track all this.
And I've been working on that actually, and I have a website I'm developing now too. But I've been, like I said, I've been slack on it because I wasn't sure how to track it, and I think it needs to be kind of self-reported. I think people need to we need to create a community to report the good days that people are having, and like a pledge, like I decide to give up bad days today, and then you can report back if you fail, because you will fail. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like if you decide today to give up bad days, tomorrow might still be a bad day. It does take some mental fortitude to get to that. It doesn't have to be. You can do it, but it might take you 3 weeks to get on track, or something like that. Just banging your head into the no bad days philosophy until you have no choice but to live it. And I think I think this would be really cool. And I envision it like old school McDonald's hamburger counter. I have a sign on the website. It's like a billion good days, it's just like BGD or something. And then and like a fake golden arch with like a billion hamburgers served. It's like, 700,000 good days and counting.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm visualizing a website where, you just have a thumbs up and thumbs down. How was today? And when you go to the thumbs down, the button moves. So
we could do it with like a push notification. We could do it with a push notification on an app too, right? Like people, like once a day, it just says, how was yesterday? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, and one of the things that you said was on my mind about fake it till you make it. And so I wanted to ask, what do you think is the balance between fake it till you make it and be your future self now?
Yeah, I mean, the concepts are obviously pretty similar, right? And I think, so if you're really, I like be your future self now better in a lot of ways, because like faking it implies that it's not true. I think it's helpful, like from a mental construct, to use the terms fake it till you make it, because it's really like saying, hey, go act as if. And if you act as if long enough, it becomes true, right? It's not really faking it, because, if you get up every day and go to the gym, you're not faking a healthy lifestyle. You're just not healthy yet because you just started yesterday, right? You're actually doing healthy things. So I don't know if fake it till you make it is really fair, but being your future self now also isn't 100% fair, right? You can act as if you've accomplished a bunch of stuff And in both cases, it can go horribly right or horribly wrong. If you say, hey, I'm a billionaire, and so you call up some jet company and charter a private jet to take you to Hawaii, so that you can have breakfast on the beach, and then you take the jet back, and then you decide to go to Paris for the weekend, and you're putting this on your credit card because it's no big deal because you're a billionaire in your mind. You're acting as your future self as a billionaire. Cool, except for you're going to be bankrupt in like 3 days. Unless you actually are a billionaire, that doesn't work. So there's always the risk that you take it too far. Right? You don't want to get into this keep up with the Joneses stuff where you're wasting a bunch of money. Look, I travel a lot, but I didn't travel 100 days a year when I was 1 year into retirement even. I didn't have the resources to do it. I had to still work. I was retired but working, right? Like it's fake. But I was acting as if I was retired. I was being my future self, right? But I was still doing things that produced income. Now, I'll be honest, for the last couple of years, I didn't do a lot of stuff that produced income. And that's very unfulfilling. So I got back to doing things that I think are cool. And I believe that we get to construct our life however we want. It's back to the powerful creator of your own existence, right? And I think that there's a lot of wisdom to just figuring out where you want to go and act as that person, but just be cautious about, taking it too far.
So Jeff, someone's listening. They said, you said you hadn't worked in 10 years, but now you're saying that you produce income. What is the difference?
Well, like I was saying earlier, if you're getting paid to do stuff you would do anyway, so I wrote the book, No Bad Days. It didn't make any money, but I would write another book. In fact, I am writing another book called The Extraordinary Life Formula. And I'm writing another book about my experience, because the No Bad Days book is really a memoir. It's like my life told as a series of life lessons up until right around the time of COVID. Now it's been, 6 years since then. And that was a coincidence. I just happened to finish it before COVID. It wasn't like, I know COVID's coming, so I'm going to write a book about pre-COVID and post-COVID or whatever. But the point is, I've had a lot of life experience since then, and so I'll probably write another memoir, a follow-up book. And I don't care if I make money on those things, right? Now, if I happen to make money on them, that's cool. And I kind of felt the same way, when I was setting up apartment building deals, like we were syndicating apartment buildings for a while. It was like, I think it would just be really fun to own an apartment building. Like I remember talk about self-actualization, manifestation, stuff like that. I would drive on my way to work every day down this one street in Chattanooga, and they were building an apartment building. And I would say to my now ex-wife once in a while, I'd say, hey, someday I want to own something like that. I didn't own any apartments. We had about 20 single family homes. And I was like, someday I want to own something like that. And I would point at this specific apartment building over and over again. When I quit working, my partner from Old Fashioned Real Estate, Brian, called me up one day and he said, hey, I have this apartment building under contract. Do you want to take a look at it with me? Maybe we can raise some money and buy it. And I go, sure. And he sent me this email, and it was that exact apartment building. Like the one that I was driving by every day going, someday I want to own something like that. I ended up buying it. Owning that exact freaking apartment building. Like, how wild is that, right? Like, that's just nonsense. I didn't go look for it. It literally fell into my lap. So I know there's truth to this stuff. But the thing is, opportunity is there, like I said, and it's about grabbing it. So that's why I started writing the Extraordinary Life Formula book, which the super short version of that is inspired thought plus the right action equals extraordinary life. And extraordinary is really an extraordinary word. It's really 2 words, extra and ordinary. So if you're living like an ordinary life and you do just a little bit extra, then you get extraordinary. And extra is exponential thought, EX, right? From extra, and then EXT, exponential thought. And then the right action is the second part of it. So once you have like a big thought, and then you take the right action towards it, that's the little bit extra that creates extraordinary life. And when you combine that with No Bad Days and the belief that we have no choice but to live the best version of our life possible, it gives you a framework for living your entire life. And that's what I just keep trying to do. And as a result of that, I end up doing really crazy things like building sailboats in Puerto Rico and having my own cigar line and, just stuff that I think is really fun. And then it turns out it makes money.
And how much of this do you think is rooted in just being content with what you have? Because everything that you talk about, it's not like I felt this lack and so I had to go out and make more money in this desperation, but instead just enjoyment for the fulfillment that you're getting out of the activities. And how important do you think it is to just be comfortable and happy with what you have no matter what level you're at?
I'm really glad you asked that question, actually, because before we were recording, we talked about a word that I love called autotelic. And autotelic is from the Greek. It means like auto, like self, like autobiography means you wrote it about yourself, right? So auto means self, and telic comes from the word telos, which is the action. So this is literally self-action. What autotelic really means is doing something for the sake of doing it. That's really what it means. And I believe that the most interesting people in the world, the people that do the coolest stuff, do it because it's cool. No other reason. They do it because it sounds fun and they just want to do it. And if they make money at it, that's cool. Like, I don't believe guys like that wrote famous books like Hemingway, who crashed 2 separate planes in Africa and was fishing from Cuba all the time. Like, I don't believe that a guy like that did those things because it made good stories to write in a book. He wrote the books because he liked writing books, right? He needed to pay for his life somehow, but he did those things because they were fun, because he enjoyed them. He did them for the purpose of doing them themselves. And that's literally what autotelic means, is something that's done for the purpose of doing it. And I love this concept. And that's kind of what you're asking about. It's like, how much of it is just for the enjoyment of it itself? And the answer is, ideally, all of it is for that reason. The more, in my opinion, the more autotelic you can be, the more interesting and fulfilling your life becomes. Because I think that, if we accept that we were created for a certain purpose, if we follow the things that are interesting to us, then we're working aligned in our own purpose. Especially if we get that definition of integrity right, so that we're not overriding our inner thoughts. If you're having I'll be super extreme. If you're sitting around all day thinking about how you want to travel the world, and then you're talking to other people about, how great it is to be a farmer, you're not going to feel aligned, right? You're just not going to be happy. But so you've got to figure out how to get into alignment. And, there's all kinds of ancient wisdom about this. You have the Japanese concept of finding the place where your passion and what you can get paid for and what you're good at all intersect, right? Have you seen that that Venn diagram thing that they do like that? It has some Japanese name that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. It starts with an I, but these concepts are all the same, right? We got to figure out what it is that we're called to do, what it is that's fulfilling to us, and then figure out how we can get paid to do those things.
So how do you structure your day around that? What does your life look like based on that philosophy?
Yeah, well, the last few years I've just I've had tons of more freedom than I ever had in my life, and that actually takes a lot of discipline, because it's really easy to just be like, I'm gonna go smoke a cigar and drink some bourbon at 2 p.m. And you can do that once in a while, but you can't do that every day, or you lose your productivity, you lose your edge, right? But for me, it's making sure I always have something on the horizon that I'm excited about, and that keeps me motivated to do stuff. So the adventure club stuff is really big. Right now, planning my Egypt trip is huge for me. So I'm spending a lot of time talking to people in Egypt, and I have a friend who's an Egyptologist that we're taking with us. And so I spend a lot of time just dealing with that right now. But once that's done, I'll have something else that I'm interested in doing. And that motivates me to keep focused on the things that are important. And then the other thing is to create artificial structure is really useful. And that can be something as simple as I always go for a walk at 9 a.m. It doesn't matter what it is, but it can also be I have a reoccurring meeting, and I do have this. I have a reoccurring accountability meeting at noon on Mondays, and I'm always there because I lead the meeting, and I don't have a choice. I got to be there. So I have a small group of people. I show up. Once in a while I might be on a plane or something, and we'll have someone fill in, but that's really important to create that structure. Because if I don't do those things, then I run the risk of not doing anything. And I've had periods of time where I'm like, oh, I'm going to spend this time writing. And then I go to a beach somewhere where I think I'm going to write and I just don't write. So like it's not a perfect system, but I think when you have the flexibility to be able to just chill or just travel or work on a project, it's really useful. And it doesn't even have to be something that makes you money, right? It doesn't even have to be like something productive. Like for a while I was writing a lot of poetry. I don't expect I'll ever make any money on that. Although I did sell one poem, which was kind of fun. I made $5 or something. It wasn't a lot, but it was cool because like they put it in a magazine and stuff, it's like, that's pretty cool. Again, I got paid to get my poem in a magazine. But like another thing is like, when I was planning on climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I spent a lot more time like hiking, right? Because I need to get ready for it. And so like just having that goal, I want to be able to climb Kilimanjaro, forced me to like change my priorities. And so lately I've been thinking about doing the Camino Santiago. Do you know the Camino Santiago?
So I've heard of it. I don't know exactly what it is.
So it's like 1,000-kilometer, 700-mile hike across rural Spain, the northern part of Spain. It goes from the French border to Santiago in Spain, and it's like a Catholic pilgrimage. I'm not Catholic, but I kind of feel like I want to learn more Spanish. I want to get healthier, and I like adventure. And, I want to work on my own spirituality. So I feel like going on a long walk across rural Spain seems like it checks a lot of boxes for me. So like, I'm thinking like, how do I find a month to do this? It's a month-long process. And a lot of people don't have that flexibility, but like, if I want to take a month, I can take a month to do this. And I will do it in the next year. I just got to figure out what month I'm going to go, and there's weather constraints and whatever. But like, part of it is like, just knowing that I want to do that is already motivating me. Like yesterday, I was like, oh, I don't feel like doing anything. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't have very many steps today. I better go for a walk, because I know if I want to walk 15 miles a day for a month straight, I need to be able to walk 15 miles a day for one day straight. And I'm not walking 15 miles every day. So I need to like, start putting some time aside for that. Now, the good part about it is it's, relatively flat. It's relatively easy. And 15 miles sounds like a lot, but, if you walk 2 miles an hour, which is pretty slow, it's 7.5 hours. And if you don't have anything else to do, it's just about putting one foot in front of the other and just keep moving. Right. So it's possible to do that. And I started thinking about that. And that's the same philosophy that I use in a lot of stuff in life. I call it 10 more feet. It's like when you're really struggling, don't worry about how do you get to the top of the mountain. Just walk 10 more feet and then figure it out. Just keep doing 10 more feet over and over again. Eventually you get to where you're going. And so I wrote a piece on that actually and stuck it in the back of my No Bad Days book. So if people want to read about that, read about climbing Kilimanjaro as an appendix to my book, which I threw in after I wrote the book. So it doesn't really fit in. It's good though. It's beautiful stuff.
So how do you find all these things to do? I mean, Kilimanjaro, I know you went to, I want to say Alaska, Antarctica.
Yeah, well,
Tanzania.
I've been to both.
How do you find all these things?
Yeah, part of it is just having really, good goals. Like, so one goal I have is called the 50-50-57 goal. It's 50 states, 50 countries, 7 continents before I turn 50. And so I'm turning 48 next week. I've got 2 more years. I've got the states done. I've got the continents done. I need 7 more countries. So I had 2 years to go to 7 countries. So now I have this timeline on this goal, right? It's kind of like SMART goals, is specific, time-bound, attainable, measured, that kind of stuff, right? Whatever. I just butchered their acronym, but you get the idea. Like, it's like if you have goals that have deadlines on them, then that does kind of force you to think through. But if you go back to the extraordinary life formula, where the first question was exponential thought, right? That's the first part of the formula. And I have like a sub routine for that. And I ask myself these questions almost every day. And I think these are really valuable. I call them empowering questions. There are obviously a whole series of them that you could ask, but the 2 that I like the most are, when is the last time you did something for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
I love this question. When is the last time you did something for the first time? And then the second is a follow-up question, which is how you get the action part of it. And that is, what can you do right now or this week or today for the first time? Like, so when's the last time you did something for the first time? And then what can I do right now that I haven't done before? And if you ask yourself questions like that, and then you surround yourself with people doing cool stuff. Like, I have friends who travel a lot more than me. I know that sounds crazy when you hear how much I travel, but then I have one friend who has been to 89 countries and he's never been to Europe. Think about that for a second. That's so
wow.
freaking hard. Like he went to Europe last year for the first time. So that was actually his 89th country was Spain. And I was like, man, bro, like you kind of waited on Europe. And he's like, yeah, well, I figured I'd get the hard ones out of the way first. He's been to every country in the Western hemisphere except for one. Like, just crazy stuff like that. Right.
I was just going to say that too, because I mean, to get your last 9 countries or whatever you need, or you said, I think it was
7
9.
more. Yeah.
7 more. That's a day trip in Europe. I mean, you land in Germany and you go on a road trip. I mean,
Yeah,
people
well, the
think
problem,
they don't realize how small Europe is.
yeah. Well, the problem is when you get to 40 countries or whatever, you kind of hit the ones that are like the easy ones already on accident. Like so I said earlier this year I was in Luxembourg. I went to Luxembourg specifically because I have a friend who has a place in Rotterdam, and Rotterdam in the Netherlands is where they do the Dutch national fireworks for New Year's. So I went to New Year's in Rotterdam this year just because I thought it'd be fun to hang out in Rotterdam. I never really hung out there. And I'm like, well, I'm here anyway. I might as well go to a new country. So I'm looking at the map and I'm like, where can I go? So I ended up in Luxembourg. But the point is, like, I had to pass through, Belgium to get there. Not because, I mean, I stopped in Belgium too while I was there. We spent a couple of days in Antwerp, which is a really cool town. But the point is still the same. Like, it becomes harder. Like, it's not like I can just drop myself in France and be like, oh, I'm going to go to 7 countries real quick a second, because all of the countries around France I've already been to, like, I mean, yes, I could go to like Macedonia or something and like hit some stuff over there that I haven't hit. And I mean, in reality, 7 countries seems like a lot for most people, but I go to more than 7 countries every year. So I'm not super worried about it. I'm pretty confident I'm going to hit it. I'm going to Ecuador next month. That'll be 44. So then I'll have 6 more and I'll have just about 2 years. That's 3 a year. I think it'll be fine, but I have to pick them carefully now. When I first started counting out countries, it was like, oh, I'm going to go on a cruise and I'm going to stop at 4 countries. Now, if I went on a cruise in the Caribbean, I would be stopping at 4 countries, but they're 4 I've already been to, and that's fine. And I also am like picky about what I count. So like I only count UN recognized countries. Like I don't count like if I go to Aruba, technically that's part of the Netherlands, so that doesn't count as a new country. That's fine, but like that's just my own random rule. I went to Bermuda last year. I thought Bermuda was a new country and I was like really excited about it, and I put it on my list, and I told one of my friends, hey, I put Bermuda on my list. I'm at 44 now. And he was like, Bermuda's part of Great Britain. And I was like, what? And then I went and looked it up and it is, and I was like, dang it all. So like I don't regret going to Bermuda though. I didn't go there to check off the country, honestly. That's the other thing about it is like it's easy to like create these kind of goals and then have them be obsessive. Like if I was obsessive about it, I would have been done a long time ago. I went to Tanzania 4 times in the last 5 years. I went to Egypt 5 times in the last 10 years, or 12 or 15 years, something like that. And I'm going to Puerto Rico like piles of times. Of course, Puerto Rico is part of the US, not a separate country. But the point is I go back to places I love. And then, if I have a chance, I go pick up another country, that while I'm there. And I think I'll probably try to make something in North Africa my 50th country, like maybe Morocco, because I haven't been to Morocco before. But I'm not really sure yet. But I have 2 years, and I might try to get it done this year though, just to be safe. Like give myself a buffer year.
You don't want to get sick or something,
or find out that one of the countries you tracked belongs to someone else.
Yeah,
no,
or gets taken over.
I'm pretty confident in my list now. I actually ran it through AI after that because I was like, wait, did I miss anything? like a couple different times, and then I pulled the UN country list, and I was like, yep, you were wrong about Bermuda, but the rest of them you're good. So
what out of all those countries, which one has been your favorite? Obviously, you listed a couple that you go back to, and why is it your favorite?
That's really complicated. Honestly, my favorite place in the world is still Puerto Rico. That's why I go there 100 days a year. I love Puerto Rico. The culture is fascinating. But like if we're talking about like actual separate countries from the US, I do really love Tanzania and Egypt, which is why I go back to them somewhat frequently. If I had to pick between the two, and by the way, Australia is a close third in there too. I really like Australia, even though I've only been there a couple times. It's just a really cool place. It's just so hard to get there, it's so far away. Um, what I like about Egypt is the history, and also it's like the first really crazy place I went. Like, I mean, I was 21 and or maybe 22, and I spent 5 weeks in Cairo studying Arabic, and like, just touring the country, and I made really good friends. And so I would go back and see the same families over and over again, and there's just so much history and culture in Egypt that's really fascinating. And I think that it's just really interesting to be there. So that's why I like going back. But I also like miss it if I'm gone. But I feel the same way about Tanzania for different reasons. The people in Tanzania are so nice. Um, and the wildlife is so spectacular. There's a place called Ngorongoro Crater in Tanzania that might be the most beautiful place in the world. I think it's about 30 miles across, a volcanic caldera, and it's pretty deep, several hundred feet deep, and you drive down into it, and it's like a self-contained ecosystem with all of the big five. It has rhinos and elephants and the buffalo, and so you have this like bizarre situation with lions and everything, like just all sort of stuck in this crater, and it's like going into the lost world. It's it's very surreal and it's very beautiful. And then you have the wildebeest migration, which, if you've seen that on TV, is like the wild, like 2 million wildebeest traveling in a single herd, which is, I've seen it twice now in 4 trips. And it's like, I could go see that every time and be happy. So one of those two is probably the place. But the thing is, I love getting to know a place more than a specific place. Like, that's what I love about Puerto Rico. It's not that Puerto Rico is better than Tanzania or Egypt. It's that I've gone there so much that I feel at home there. And it's like, I have friends there. And when my plane goes to land and I see the island for the first time, it always makes me feel happy. Like every time I land there, I'm like, oh, thank God I'm back in Puerto Rico. And I feel the same way when I touch down in Egypt or Tanzania. But honestly, I feel that way whenever I go somewhere new also, or I go somewhere that I've been before and I love. And so I'm always, if I'm chasing anything in life, I'm chasing like the excitement of getting to really understand what's going on in a new and interesting place.
So what is it about those places? Is it the culture? Is it the animals, the scenery, the history? What is it? All of it? What drives you there?
Well, the thing is, the places that I really love, I want to share with other people. And I think what drives me there is this belief that I should live my life in a way that it inspires other people. So like, I'll go to Tanzania and someone will be like, wow, a once in a lifetime trip. And I'll be like, no, I go to Tanzania once a year. That's what I do now. It might be once in a lifetime for you, but it doesn't have to be. Right. So part of what I do is because I feel called to do it. But another part of it is I just like experiencing new and different things. So yes, culture is part of it. If I go to Egypt, I don't read Arabic. I don't speak very much Arabic, but at least I can understand a few words here and there. But like, I don't read squiggly lines. Like, I don't know I can't tell a hospital from a fast food restaurant other than by looking in the window and seeing if they're doing surgery or making burgers, right? Like if it's in Arabic, I can't tell what it is. And I think there's something exciting and difficult about that makes your life more interesting. And if I'm chasing anything in my life, we talked briefly about self-identifying statements, and I did for a long time consider myself the no bad days guy, and that's how I identified myself. But later I changed it to living as if I'm the most interesting man in the world, like the Dos Equis thing. And I framed questions through myself, like what would the most interesting man do right now? And I've lived my life that way long enough that sometimes people walk up to me and they say, oh, I want to introduce you to my friend. And they'll say like, this is the most interesting person I know. You should meet him. And I'm like, thank God, like I'm living my life exactly how I want it to be. So like my self-identifying statement for myself is like, I'm the most interesting man in the world. And I know it's not literally true, but it doesn't have to be. It's about living as if, right? Like what we were talking about earlier. And I think some of my passion for travel comes from that, because you know what? The most interesting man in the world has more than one place he lives. and he goes to Tanzania 5 times a year or something stupid like that. I don't actually go 5 times a year. Although who knows, I might soon. I have a friend there that would really like me to spend a lot more time with her. So it might happen. Who knows?
It's funny, everything that you're saying about, alignment in your thoughts and your, words you're speaking and your actions and all that stuff. I just keep thinking that your next book needs to be called Gaslight Yourself. I think that will blow up.
Yeah, interesting. So I mean, like I said, I'm writing 2 books right now, kind of simultaneously. One is the Extraordinary Life Formula book, which I'm really happy with how it's turning out, but I kind of got distracted on it because this is the problem with not having structure in your life is you can like get halfway done with something and then go, oh, you know what? I should build an AI agent. That'll be fun. And then like you build an AI agent and then you're like, oh, I should start traveling more or whatever. But the Extraordinary Life book's going to be out probably next year sometime, and that one's going to be really good. But Gaslight Yourself, that's interesting. I was actually leaning towards hashtagification as the name of the next book, but we'll see. I do think it's like there is some truth that just like, I'm sorry, somebody's like WhatsApping the crap out of me right now.
Let's say you've blown up.
Yeah, I don't normally, honestly, I forget that I have WhatsApp on my computer. I never used WhatsApp on my computer. But lately I've been doing so many like video calls on WhatsApp that it's just easier to have it on my computer. So I forgot to mute it. So sorry about that, guys. Like, and it's the same person sending me 2-word texts. They're like, "Hey, how are you? What's up?" and it's actually one of the guys I know from Egypt. So he probably just like woke up and was like, "Oh, I should start talking to him right now."
He heard you talking about him.
Yeah. Well, he's an Egyptologist. And I've known his family for more than 20 years. Actually, I met his uncle back in 2001. And he has a doctor. This guy, Amro, has a doctor of Egyptology. And he's actually weirdly focused on sun-based religions. That's like one of his things. And he's the one that's going to come to the solar eclipse with us in Egypt. So it's freaking wild. Cool. It's going to be one of the most, it's a once in a civilization experience. You guys should come, actually. I have like 7 spots left, so let me know if you want one. I'll get you the info.
Hey, I would be interested for sure. You've talked about traveling all these places. Obviously, you say you don't speak Arabic. Culture, communication becomes an issue. How do you navigate all of that, especially spending as much time as you do overseas?
Yeah, well, so I mean, I do try to learn a little bit of their language, right? So, at least please and thank you and where's the bathroom and stuff like this. I try to do that whenever possible. My Swahili is not very good, but, I'm trying. So, get that. But it's easier now than it's ever been because if you have the right phone plan, you can have data anywhere in the world practically, and you can use Google Translate. So it's not difficult. But also if you make friends with people that speak your language, that helps. So like Amr that was just texting me, like he speaks English, so I don't need to speak Arabic. I can talk to him and he can make sure I get what I need and whatever. But I've been studying Spanish. So like I've been going to Puerto Rico now for about 4 years, maybe. I mean, I've been going for like 25 years, but like I've been like, I had an apartment there for the last 4 years. I rented one for 3 and I bought one a year ago, a condo on the beach. And it's like freaking beautiful. Actually, it's really nice. And I want to be there more, honestly. But I thought if I'm going to be in Puerto Rico a lot, and last year when I bought the condo, I started studying Spanish. First, I did Duolingo for a couple of years before that, and it didn't really help that much. But then I hired a one-on-one tutor online, and I do like 3 hours a week with her. So like my Spanish is getting passable. Puerto Ricans speak so fast that like it's hard for me to keep up with Puerto Ricans. But I went to Guatemala a month and a half ago or so, and had long conversations with Uber drivers and had no problem. So obviously I know some Spanish now. I just can't speak Puerto Rican Spanish quite yet, but we'll get there. They're so fast, and they drop a lot of letters and mash their words together, and it's hard to understand them. But it definitely helps to learn some of the language. But like I said, I think it's less and less relevant. In tourist areas, I almost always find someone that speaks English. English is ironically the lingua franca. Like they used to say that French was the language that you had to know if you wanted to travel the world. But now it's really English. Like most places you can find an English speaker. So
I mean, you talked about the doing something new. As you get more in practice of that, what kinds of things have you been finding to be the new skill, or other than just languages?
Yeah, I mean, lately I've been really geeking out on AI. I think AI is really fascinating. The world's changing really fast. So I've done things like build my own AI bots and stuff like that. And I just again, I haven't really monetized it. I haven't like sold anything regarding it. But like I'm coding apps and stuff for my own use. Like I have a country tracking app on my computer now. It's like I just did it to see if I could do it, things like that. It's not even like it's just a local app, but I'm not a coder. Like I'm using AI to do this stuff, and it's really fascinating, and I find that really interesting. But I'm always like trying to inspire myself by reading usually autobiographies of people that did really cool stuff. That's like, to me, that's really useful, but also biographies of people. I recently read 3 different biographies about Ben Franklin. I read one about Mark Twain. I actually find, speaking of Mark Twain, I think people who write for a living are usually really interesting. So I really like reading autobiographies of authors. Like even if it's an author I don't care about. Like I read James Patterson's autobiography recently, and it was fascinating. Like the type of person that makes a living by writing books, even apparently drivel books like James Patterson writes, is still living a really interesting life. And I find the same about actors and actresses, actually, because people that have a lot of time freedom but are ambitious, like an actor will work, they'll finish a movie, and then they'll have 7 months off before their next project. But now they have resources, and they're obviously ambitious, or they want to become a successful actor, because it does take a lot of work to me. It's not like a random magic trick. You just get discovered, right? You work your butt off in most cases. I'm sure there's exceptions, but they tend to be doing really interesting stuff. Like Matthew McConaughey's book was amazing. Like, right. I mean, everyone knows that the Green Lights book, like everyone was like, wow, this is great. But Matthew McConaughey is the rule, not the exception. Bryan Cranston's book, A Life in Parts, is fascinating. Like it's a really good book. Bryan Cranston's the guy from what is it, Breaking Bad, right? Like the guy who's in Breaking Bad, and and it's true of like every one of those. Like James A. Michener, who used to write these really long novels like Hawaii and the Caribbean and stuff, and he died in the early '90s, but he was super popular in the '80s and the late '70s. His book, The World Is My Home, is like life changing. And no one read it because people want to read his novels. They didn't want to read his autobiography, but like you guys should go read it. And Michael Crichton, who wrote, Jurassic Park and all this stuff, fascinating guy, Harvard trained medical doctor, but never practiced medicine. I mean, that's weird in and of itself, right? He's the only guy ever to have the #1 best-selling book on the New York Times list, the #1 TV show, and the #1 movie all at the same time. That's fascinating, right? Like he created ER. like the impact of somebody like that is fascinating. But his book isn't about, oh, I wrote Jurassic Park. It's about like learning to scuba dive in Fiji, and like, and almost getting eaten by a shark, and like, exploring like Southeast Asia in the '70s, right? Just like crazy stuff. And like I read his book Travels, which is fascinating. Some of it I think is really weird and like super new agey, like strange stuff, but the book itself is fascinating. And then I read it again several years later and realized that it inspired me. Crichton climbed Kilimanjaro. Crichton became a scuba diver. What do? I love scuba diving, and I climbed Kilimanjaro. And I realized I might have never done either of those had I not been inspired by Michael Crichton. So is Michael Crichton the most important mentor in my life? No, he's dead. I never met him. Like I'm obviously not going to now. But you can be inspired by all kinds of things. Listening to a podcast, hearing me talk about scuba diving might make you decide to try scuba diving. I think you should. It's a great time. If you don't like it, you're dumb. I don't know. What you do like, right? And then the other thing I do is I keep a curated list I call the 100 Things list. And it's like a life list. It's not a bucket list because it's never intended to be finished. It's not like I'm going to do these things before I die. In fact, right now I have 86 things on the list. Sometimes I have 90, sometimes I have 70, but like when I cross something off, I try to put something back on. I try to keep it as close to 100 as possible. And sometimes it's like, you know, really crazy stuff that I might never accomplish. Like the number one thing on the list, not that they're prioritized in that order, but the first thing I wrote down is go to space. I have not been to space. I hope someday to go to space. Like if I have the opportunity, I'm going to take it because I think that would be really cool. But like if I don't, it's not like my life sucked, you know, like but having 100 things on the list means it's okay if I don't accomplish that one. Another one on the list, it's not always like travel related. Another one on the list is to live long enough to have a real meaningful relationship with my grandchildren. Well, I don't have any children and I'm like nearly 50. So like, what do you think the odds of living long enough to have a meaningful relationship with my grandchildren is? Pretty small. But I'm not going to take it off the list because, you know, it's a cool aspirational thing. It might cause me to decide to be healthier, or maybe it will decide me to find someone that wants to have kids and see if I can live long enough to have a relationship with my grandkids, you know, like who knows? And, you know, I have, you know, a whole bunch of things on there, and some of them are big things like that. And some of them are really small things. Like I was on a plane a few years ago and I was telling this young lady that was sitting next to me because we were stuck on the like runway for a long time in first class and we were drinking. And so we were talking about my 100 things list for some reason. And I showed it to her and I had about 80 things on the list then. And she goes, you need to add, the butterfish at Roy's in Honolulu to this list. And I'm like, why? She's like, it's really good. It's the best fish I've ever had. You need to put it on the list. And I'm like, you know, whatever. I got room. I'll throw it on there. Right. So a couple of years later, in Singapore, right? I'm hanging out in Singapore at a cigar lounge. I'm talking to this guy, Sanjeev Chopra, who's Deepak Chopra's younger brother. Right. So, and Sanjeev is a Harvard trained, hepatologist. He's a liver expert, right? He's one of the world's foremost liver experts. And I'm sitting there and I get a phone call. Hey, can you come to Maui? And I'm like, it's Brandon Turner, right? He wants me to come to Maui and film his podcast. And I was like, sure, when? It's like a week and a half from now because somebody canceled. And I'm like, all right, yeah, why not? I'll go to Maui. Why not? I'll do it. I'm in Singapore. I'm like halfway to Maui anyway, like I'm not anywhere close, right? So I buy a plane ticket from Singapore. I have a layover in Seoul and I end up in Honolulu for one night before flying to Maui. And I called a friend of mine. I said, I'm going to be in Honolulu for one night. We should meet up. And he's like, cool. What do you want to do? I said, I want to go get butterfish at Roy's, right? So I go and have this fish. And you know what? It was pretty good. Although in fairness, he had like a swordfish that I thought was way better than my butterfish. So I disagree with her assessment. But the thing is, I had this beautiful experience that I would never had because it was on my list. And I might not have even thought to call anyone and go. I would have probably just been like, well, I'm only in Honolulu for a day. I'm just going to like chill out at the hotel and like walk around and leave. But I had it on my list. So it's a very long answer to your question about how you can be inspired to try new things. But it's just about exposing yourself to ideas. And if you do that, you do new things. And some of them are really, really small. Sometimes you just drive a different way to work. Honestly, like just take a different route to your office and see something you didn't see. And that you never know what opportunities will come up. You might see a development being built and go, whoa, I should be buying around here. You might see a piece of land that's for sale and decide to build your own development. If you're not in real estate, you might learn about a new coffee house and say, oh, I think I should stop for coffee there sometime. And then when you go stop for coffee there, you might meet your future spouse. You know, who knows, right? She might be the barista or something. And you just don't know. And it's just about being open to that all the time.
So Jeff, someone's watching this, talking about inspiration and stuff, and they hear everything you're saying, and they're like, wow, I'm inspired. However, what you're saying sounds expensive. How would you structure your life? What small thing can they do in order to say we'll just pick an age, 33. They're 33, they're inspired to say, hey, 15 years, I want to be living a life like this. As a bankruptcy attorney, you know, finance person,
Yeah.
what what would be your direction for
Well,
them?
I mean, if they woke up right now, they should be retired in like 6 months. Like, honestly, it's super easy to make money right now. The AI stuff, like, if I was motivated to make money, I would just be raking in money like crazy. Like, spend like 2 months getting really good at AI, and then just go build a whole bunch of businesses. I have a friend who built a personal AI agent. It took him about a month. I mean, he's been paying attention to AI for a couple of years, so he has a head start on whoever this random 33-year-old is. But he built an agent that's like vibe coding businesses for him. He'll be like, "Hey, I got an idea for a business. Let's do X, Y, and Z." And the AI will come up with the whole plan. It will tell him every step of it, and it will say, "Do you want me to do it?" And he goes, "Yes." And it goes and registers a domain for him. It creates the stuff he's selling. It sets up a Stripe account. It opens a bank account for him. It opens a freaking LLC for him. Everything. All he has to do is say yes, and now he has a new business. Like, and it doesn't have to make that much money. If that business makes him $500 a month, and you can create a new one every day, that's just one example of ways to make money in AI. I could come up with 100 ways to make money in AI right now, honestly. So like, I think if someone really is motivated, there's tons of opportunity. But like, if you're not into AI or whatever, and you're not called to do that, I mean, the reality of it is, just go back to the basic rich dad, poor dad principles, like, one of the things Kiyosaki said that I think is really smart is that he said, how many houses can you buy that cost you $100 a month? Right. And then he's like, the answer is like a few, 5, 6, something like that. After a while, you can't do it. So you buy something for 100,000, it rents for $1,000 a month, but your all in expenses after mortgage is 1,100. You can buy a couple of those, and you might even come out okay in the long run on that, right? Because over 20 years, that house might be worth 200,000. It's paid down to 50. And so you made a nice return, and it was a decent return, but you can only do so much of those. But if you find things that give you positive cash flow, you can do an infinite amount of those. So you can buy an unlimited amount of houses that pay you 100 a month, but you can't buy an unlimited amount of houses that cost you 100 a month, which is where he gets that definition of whether it's an asset or not, is like, does it feed me or does it take money from me? And I think it's the same, not just in real estate, though. It's the same in vibe coding an app. If you vibe code an app using AI, and the app costs you $100 a month, you can do it. It's fine, but it's a hobby. It's not a business, right? But if it makes you $100 a month and it doesn't take a lot of your time, it's fine. And so I think if you apply that principle consistently over time, you can retire, and it doesn't matter what you choose. And I don't think it takes 10 or 15 years because it's exponential. Everyone I know that's consistent with their investing strategies and is disciplined, it takes them between 5 and 10 years to retire. Everyone. I've never known anyone to do it in less than 5. I've never known anyone to take more than 10 if they stayed consistent on it. And I think AI might accelerate that. So you might be able to do it in 2 or 3, or even 6 months. Like I was saying, I was being a little facetious, but I do think you can do that. But not in real estate. Real estate's slower than that, right? Yeah. If you want to do it fast, you've got to speed up somehow. Business is clearly the easiest way to get super rich, but it's also the easiest way to waste your entire life not getting rich at all, because a lot of people have businesses that are like a poor paying job. So you got to be careful about how you structure your time, and you got to guard your time. Brandon Turner said to me once that the secret to being a good business person is figuring out how to give away your responsibilities to someone else as soon as possible. So if you can do that using people, great. But if you do it using AI, even better, right? So if you take some task you're working on now and you automate it so you don't have to think about it anymore, it frees you up to make more money somewhere else. And that's the same with if you hire someone to do that job. The less responsibility you have, the more creative you get, the more productive you get, the more money you make. Because at the end of the day, the world, the universe, the economy, whatever you want to call it, it rewards productivity. The more productive you are, the more money you make, period. Like the reason Elon Musk's super rich is because he's very, very good at leveraging other people's productivity. And right now with AI, we can essentially create unlimited productivity. We're very close to a period where the productivity curve breaks. All of human history, whenever new technologies come out and productivity has increased, net wealth has increased. They invented the assembly line, and there was more wealth in the world after the assembly line. And a lot of people like lost money during that time, but a lot of people made money. And it wasn't just Henry Ford. Henry Ford made money, yes, building cars, but also so did Firestone making tires, and people that started gas station chains, and people who learned how to pave roads, and people who learned how to stripe paved roads. All of those people made money that didn't, and none of that money would have been produced if it wasn't for the fact that we had a lot more cars because of the assembly line, right? No, it did hurt some people. If you were a horse and buggy manufacturer and you didn't pivot to something else, it hurt you. So there's a transfer of wealth that occurs, but there's also a massive creation of wealth that occurs when productivity increases. And productivity is increasing right now faster than it ever has in human history. And it's exponential, and it will keep increasing faster and faster until at some point all productivity is divorced from human productivity, when the AIs can do everything. And between now and then, huge amounts of wealth will be created. And so right now is the best time to make money ever. And 5 years from now, it might be impossible to make money. Like, that actually may be a thing. Like, we may get to a point where all the wealth that can be created has been created by humans, and the rest is just AI created. And unless you own the AI, you're out of luck. So you need to stay on top of that curve and need to be ready for massive changes that are going to occur over the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. I mean, listen, and I have these conversations with real estate investors, but I have them with Uber drivers. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he goes, "Oh, the reason I drive Uber is it's a safe job, and I don't have to worry about anyone firing me." And I'm like, "Have you been to Austin, Texas?" Like, I was in Austin, Texas earlier this year. I took 7 Ubers. 5 of them didn't have drivers. And that's coming really fast. But that's coming for all of our jobs.
Yeah, Elon Musk said next year that they're going to be releasing those cars without steering wheels, and it's like 30,000 to 35,000 is the base price. And so you can literally have your own car you buy for 35,000. It'll drive you to work, and then when you get to work, you hit a button and it turns into a taxi, and anybody else can rent it out.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
absolutely crazy.
Think about this. So assuming that Elon Musk releases at scale self-driving cars that can be robo-taxis when you're not using them, who would buy anything other than that? Because you buy a $30,000 car and your payment's, $800 a month or whatever, and your robo-taxi is making you $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month. So now you're getting paid to own that car. Why would you buy anything else? And if you wouldn't buy anything else, what does that do to the other car manufacturers? What does that do to their margins? And for that matter, what does it do to the value of used cars? I have a $30,000 used car. It's a nice car. It's an Avalon hybrid, low mileage. It's relatively new. It's a beautiful car. I love it. But you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't pay me to have it. So what am I going to do when the robo-taxi comes out? I'm going to buy one of those and get rid of the freaking Avalon. I'm going to dump it for nothing. So I'm thinking about this today, and I'm going, maybe I should sell my Avalon now and just rent a car, because I don't want to lose all that money. Like, if I thought it was coming out this week, I would already be selling my Avalon. You got to stay ahead of these curves, because there is going to be a huge transfer of wealth. And if I sell my Avalon for $25,000 today, and I rent $5,000 worth of cars over the next year, and then my Avalon's worth $2,000 because no one wants them anymore because of the robo-taxis, right? That transfer of wealth hurt someone else a lot more than it hurt me, So part of me wants to go buy a junker somewhere, so I have no value tied up in a vehicle, but I like my car too much, so I'm willing to take the risk that I time it wrong, because it doesn't affect me. But if you have a $30,000 car and it's like 50% of your net worth, you're stupid right now for a couple of reasons. One, you shouldn't have a $30,000 car if your net worth $60,000. But also, if you have a $30,000 car with a car payment on it right now, and you don't have any net worth, which there's a lot of people in this world like that, you need to be getting rid of that thing, because it might be worth $5,000 in 2 years, and you're still going to owe 20. And then you can't get rid of it, and you're stuck paying a mortgage payment on a car that's losing money every day, and everyone else is getting paid to have cars. Which category do you want to be in? And that's the thing that people are missing about AI, is that the world's going to change so rapidly. It's the same with, he cut 2 of his car production lines to make robots. Now, when we have humanoid robots that can do our dishes and mow our lawn and stuff, what does that do to regular people that want jobs. Your housekeepers, your lawn maintenance guys. And when you have a self-driving car and a robot, you don't even go to the grocery store anymore. You just tell your robot to get in your self-driving car and go to the grocery store and pick your stuff up. What does that do to DoorDash? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to go pay DoorDash to deliver? Or you're just going to send your robot in your car that didn't cost you anything because you already have it.
It's insane.
We're
Well,
going to be walking
very
around
interesting
grocery
time.
stores in 5 years, and half the people there are going to be robots. The world is, and it might be 10 years, but this stuff is coming, and like, we're going to live in a sci-fi world, and we need to accept it.
well, and I love that you use the example of the cart and buggy manufacturers. We talk about this a lot, that every single revolution, those people had to just pivot. I mean, and you said it yourself that if you're not pivoting and ready for the next new technology, then you're going to be left behind. But on the flip side, I think that people need to remember that AI is a tool, and just like, I mean, AI has been around for a long time. I think spell check is a version of AI, and granted, his
Sure
spell
is.
check might get a lot more work than mine, but when people are using it irresponsibly, they're a perfect example, and this might be close to home as a former attorney. In Omaha, there was an attorney that got in trouble for citing fake case law because they used AI to write up, I can't remember what the paperwork's called, but I mean, what is your perspective on using it responsibly?
Well, I mean, it's no different than using an employee responsibly. People are only as good as their training and their inputs. If you hire a VA from the Philippines, and you tell them to make you YouTube videos, but you don't specify what kind of YouTube videos, you're going to get a bad result, right? And AI has a couple of unique challenges. One is the hallucination thing, where if it wants to please you so much, it'll make stuff up. But it's also like a yes man. It'll just agree. You'll be like, hey, I have this idea to start a business. And it'll be like, yeah, that's a great idea. We should do it. And here's how much money you're going to make. But there's no one telling you, like, wait a minute, it's a little bit harder than that. Although these things are getting better all the time. So part of it is just understanding that, like anything we do, it's potential to be good, it's potential to be bad. Nuclear power can be really useful, but it can also be really bad. It's a tool, right? Like, I love nuclear power. I think we should do more of it. But I don't really like nuclear bombs, and they're pretty much the same power source, right? I mean, a little different refinement, but it's the same with AI. Like, I used AI to write investor updates just yesterday for some of my syndications. Now, did I just say, hey, write me an investor update? Of course not. I took my last quarter update and I fed it into my AI, and I said, okay, here, ask me questions about what's changed, what's up. Like, let's make sure we understand it. And then, of course, I read the output to make sure I agreed with it before anyone else saw it. And then I sent it to my partner and said, here's my draft. Like, you take a look at it. Now, it took me a whole day to do 5 updates yesterday, which is actually amazing, because before I had AI, it would take me a whole week to do 5 updates because I would do about 1 a day. So I love this. I think that was a great use of AI. Now, I could have done all of the updates in 15 minutes. I could have, but I would have had bad work product. I know, because I spit it in there and it gives me a draft immediately, and then I read it and go, no, that's not at all what I want to say. Like, I need to clarify the tone. I need to make sure that the data is right. And I've got to verify numbers and stuff like this. So I think that's the thing with AI is recognizing that it's a very, very powerful tool, but like all powerful tools, it can be abused. If I put a drill to your head and drill into your skull, if I'm not a brain surgeon, that drilling is very effective, but it's not great. The tool isn't the problem; it's how you're using it that's the problem.
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing there is that your ownership of the results. And like, I use AI for putting together investor pitches, or just cost models, like whatever, but I own the results. So I'm going to check it. I'm going to verify that the numbers make sense. Anytime it cites information, I ask it, but yeah, no, I love that.
So, Jeff, I got a quick question. You talk about syndications and investor updates and stuff like that. I know that's kind of the area of real estate you play in, and you're raising money right now for one of Matt Faircloth's funds. But What do you think the future is? And kind of tying in AI, do you think there is a future in real estate as an investor?
Well, yeah, I mean, real estate's look. One of the reasons I got into real estate originally was I was working in a transportation company in Chattanooga, and I had an opportunity to buy the company. Made a lot of money. Could have made a lot of money doing that, but I looked at the future of technology and said, this 50 truck company isn't going to compete when they're self-driving semis. Like, it's not possible, and I can't scale fast enough to get ahead of that curve, because I know what we pay our drivers, and I know the economics of having to stop every 8 hours and rest, and have required breaks and stuff. And when the self-driving semis are out, they're not going to have required breaks. They're not going to have drivers. They don't need to rest. Like, they can work 24 hours a day, and the labor cost is zero. Even if the truck costs $250,000 more, I'm going to get that back in 1 year. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, the economics are done. So I looked at the world and I said, what is something that cannot be automated away, that will always be a demand? And the only thing I could think of was residential real estate. Like, there may be other stuff, but like movies can be made by AI, books can be written by AI, experiences can be created by AI. We can have virtual reality stuff. But at the end of the day, someone needs to lay down and go to sleep somewhere. Now, AI can certainly reduce the cost of that by making cheaper materials, building houses with less labor. So there's a risk of some deflationary effect to real estate, but the real estate itself exists, it's real, and people need a place to be. We're always in real estate. It doesn't matter where we are, whether we own it or not, we're always in real estate. Like, there's always real estate under our feet. And so as a result of that, I think there's going to be a future in real estate. Now, what that future looks like, that's a different issue. I personally think we might see massive deflation about 4 to 5 years from now, because as labor inputs are reduced and the cost of intelligence trends towards zero, which we know will happen because we know, like, what happened with microchips. People don't realize this, but it happens with technology across all time. I'm going to get into a little small lecture that I find fascinating, and you guys might be bored, but I'm going to do it anyway. So do you know what the most valuable technology in the Middle Ages was?
Iron?
Paper.
Paper.
Yeah. Like, to write something on a piece of paper was like a month's salary to have a piece of paper, right? Now we crumple the stuff up and throw it away. We use it to wrap our sandwiches in, whatever, right? Like, paper's nothing. It's essentially free. But it was a very valuable technology because it was a place to record and store data, right? And it was expensive to make, and very few people understood how to use it. And that, over time, became essentially trash. And that's what happens with all technologies that are insanely useful, like paper, especially information storing technologies. So microchips, when NASA landed on the moon in 1969, were essentially non-existent, but to the extent that they existed, computing technology was extremely expensive. Now our iPhone, actually iPhone 1 had more computing technology than all of NASA did in 1969, and that was 15 years ago, right? Now we have Hallmark cards that you can open up, and when you open them up, they like sing a song to you. That's a microchip that's doing that, right? That's a freaking $2 card, and we're just throwing it away when we're done. Like, oh, that was cute, and then we toss it in the trash, right? That would have been, that technology in 1969 would have cost $1 billion, and I'm not even exaggerating, and we're throwing it away. So this is what is going to happen with AI, is it's going to trend to free, because that's what technology does when it's insanely useful. It gets better and better and better, and it trends to free. And we see this with monitors now. Flat screen TVs 20 years ago were like obscenely expensive for like a 30-inch screen. And now you go to Walmart and you get like an 86-inch screen for like $2. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And pretty soon we're going to have, like, you just paint like a screen on the wall, and then like I just turn the wall to invisible and I can see the outside, because like image technology is getting so much better, right? Like, and this stuff is going to happen with technology over time, and it will happen really fast with AI because it's so useful. So what that means is we're going to have a really big deflationary effect. Now, it may be offset by the power of the federal government And what I say to that is, I mean, they may just not want deflation to occur because, deflation is really hard to deal with in an economic sense, especially if you have a huge national debt that's paid in dollars, right? So like if you have you owe a lot of dollars, you don't want deflation, you want inflation. So our government has always tried to keep inflation in check, but is terrified of deflation, right? So as a result of that, we may very well, see the government just keep printing money to keep deflation in check. But if deflation occurs from the natural component cost, it could lower the price of real estate dramatically, which means if you have a lot of debt on your real estate, you have a problem. So like if I were being super conservative, which I'm not right now, but if I was going to be super conservative, I would sell almost all of my real estate. I would deleverage my portfolio and I would keep, a few $1 million in free and clear real estate. Because the thing is, if you had a couple of $1 million in free and clear real estate and the value went down, it doesn't matter if it's real deflation, right? Let's say you have a piece of property that throws off $100,000 a year in spendable cash. And then you have deflation. So now it only throws off $20,000 a year in spendable cash, and it's no longer worth $1 million. It's worth 200,000. It doesn't matter if that 20,000 can buy 5 times as much as it used to buy. It's the same purchasing power. People think in dollars, which is why deflation is complicated. But the reality is, if you don't owe dollars, deflation doesn't hurt you at all because your purchasing power stays the same. It's only when you owe dollars that inflation and deflation actually matter, right? Like if it's really pure, like you're going to make more in an inflationary environment and make less in a deflationary environment, then the dollar amount doesn't matter. It's just it's that we're pricing stuff with stickiness that matters. And the biggest stickiness is 30-year mortgages, right? If we have jobs are sticky because you only get a raise or whatever once a year or something like that. So like it's there's a stickiness to it, but it's not like completely stuck like a 30-year mortgage is. So anyway, so I don't know the answer to any of this, but I do think that there's a lot of risk points in the future, but tons of opportunity. And so I would just stack up the opportunities. And it's just like that worrying thing. It doesn't do any good to worry about it. You can either do something about it or you can't. And so if you can do something about it, that is, make some more money, go do that. But to the extent that we can't control it, it's no point in worrying about it. We'll see what happens. And you know what? I know one thing. My life is going to be good no matter what, because I love being alive and I'm going to do really cool stuff. And, if I end up bankrupt, I did that once before. It wasn't the end of the world. I still found a way to live. And I think that, residential real estate will probably prevent me from going bankrupt. And, even if there's huge deflation, I think the government has an incentive to create like more Section 8 vouchers and like keep people in housing because people need to live somewhere. So unless we're in like a Terminator situation where the robots are killing us all, in which case we can't do anything about it anyway, because they'll kill us faster than we can respond. It won't be like a war. It'll be like they're smarter than us and we just don't wake up one day. We won't even see it coming.
Amen. Well, I appreciate all that. If someone wants watching this and they hadn't seen you before and they want to get a hold of you or want to go to Egypt or whatever, go on one of your crazy trips, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, of course, now we just talked about Terminator and stuff. People think I'm insane and they're not going to have any interest. But yeah, we talk about all that stuff when we hang out. JeffreyHolst.com. This is my name.com is my website, but I'm at Jeffrey Holst everywhere, like Twitter, TikTok, Be Real. It doesn't matter. I'm on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook. Any of those, if you reach out to me, I try to respond to everyone wherever I can. And I'm the only one that does the responses too. So if you get a response from me, it's not an assistant. It's not an AI. It's me. Can't promise it'll always be that way because every once in a while I change my mind and let someone else do it for a while. And then I get annoyed because I run into somebody and I'll see Ryan. He'll be like, hey, remember that conversation we had last week? And I'll be like,
No.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
I do now.
You're right. I did agree to come to your house for a barbecue.
Yeah. Well,
But
Jeff,
yeah, I'm easy to find, and I'd love people to reach out to me. So
I appreciate catching up with you. It's been a minute since I've connected, and so yeah, got to learn a lot more about you. And yeah, Egypt sounds fun. I'll have to convince the wife. She says I already travel too much. I traveled nowhere near as much as you. So
well, you can take her. then she won't feel jealous. You just be like, hey, let's go.
I would absolutely have to take her on
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to Arizona here next month, and it was a quick conversation. Normally she's like, well, I want to go. She's like, you want to go to Arizona in May? She's like, you can have fun with that one. It's like she didn't want to touch that one. So
So we're going to Egypt in August, which is like the worst time to go there, but I can't pick when the solar eclipse occurs, right?
yeah.
But honestly though, and I don't want to go too far on this because we're wrapping up, but this trip is 11 days, 3 days, 3 nights on Nile riverboat cruise, pyramids, the New Egyptian Museum in Cairo, Coptic Cairo, Kanakalili, which is a 1,200-year-old spice market. And then, of course, the Valley of Kings, Karnak, Aswan, Abu Simbel, all included. All you got to do is show up. So it's a pretty good time.
I'm sold. I'm gonna have to have the conversation. So, but you got anything on the?
No, we'll see you in Egypt.
Yeah. I'll see you both there. And your respective partners as well. Who knows? Maybe we'll expand the trip and everyone listening can come too. We'll just have a giant party in Egypt. Probably not though, because that would be unwieldy, and I don't think I could handle that. So
No, I don't think so. So, well,
right
Jeff,
on. Well, thanks for
appreciate
having me on. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.